Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. Please be seated. I hope you've taken a moment to read our acknowledgement to our friends and neighbors, the Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh and Musqueam. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Mayor Sager. I would like to recommend that the December 9th, 2024 regular council meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
Thank you. Councillor Watt, please.
Second that.
Thank you. Any discussion, question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. Item number 3, proposed miscellaneous bylaws, and I see, do we actually have a presentation on all of this?
I do have a short presentation. What I've done, the zoning amendments that we're proposing, there's a detailed summary and description of those in the staff report. There's an even more summarized version in the staff presentation. I'm not going to go into detail on each specific amendment because that would take quite a bit of time. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have, but I was just going to focus on one example for each bylaw amendment, if that's okay. Okay, I'll share the presentation. Here we go. So thank you, Mayor and Council, members of the public. For consideration tonight are amendments to various planning bylaws intended to provide corrections, clarifications, and improvements. As I said, I'll go into a bit of a summary of each one, not to try to be relatively brief, and happy to answer any questions. So generally, the amendments are for 4 specific bylaws: the zoning bylaw, development procedures bylaw, the official community plan or OCP bylaw, and the sign bylaw. For the zoning bylaw, as I said, I'm just going to focus on one example. If there's questions on these other ones, there is this high-level summary here, and there is a more detailed summary in the staff report. The example is correcting our existing duplex or RD zones. And that's required in order to align with the provincial requirements for small-scale multi-unit housing. Council will recall that in the summer, there were amendments that were adopted by Council to comply with the provincial requirements for small-scale multi-unit housing. What that did is it allowed 4 or 6 dwelling units on parcels that were impacted by that, depending on their size and their proximity to transit. So the amendment that is for consideration tonight is for 2 specific sections of the RD zones. So that's for site width and site area. For site width, the way the site width requirement is currently written, it could actually impact a site's ability to achieve the 4 or the 6 units. And so we're proposing an amendment that would avoid that from occurring. And so we're proposing to simplify that section and just have a single site width requirement, and to make it clear that that would only be applicable for the consideration of subdivision, and it wouldn't impact a site's ability to achieve the number of dwelling units. And then for site area, that's a provision that's within a lot of the district zones, and essentially we use it for determining if a site is large enough to be subdivided. So for the RD zones, they're written in a bit of a different way. There's 3 different site areas for each use: single family, duplex, ground-oriented housing. And that is written in a somewhat confusing way because it doesn't give us a clear determination of what size are we aiming for in terms of site size requirements for subdivision. So we're proposing to simplify that, have a single site size or site area requirement, and that would determine whether a site could be subdivided if it had that area requirement. So that just provides one example, and as I said, I'm happy to go back at the end and answer any questions. Then for the development procedures bylaw, similarly, there's a detailed summary in the report. Here's a high-level summary on this slide here. The one example I'll describe: we're proposing to amend the public hearing, public meeting, and notification procedures to align with Local Government Act requirements. So along with the small-scale multi-unit housing requirements that the province required local governments to comply with, there were also changes in Bill 44 related to public hearings. So for specific types of zoning amendments, the Local Government Act now prohibits a public hearing from being, from a local government from having a public hearing. And there's 2 specific instances of that. One is for zoning amendment required to comply with the small scale multi-unit housing. And then the other is for development projects. So where a zoning amendment would allow a residential development and that zoning amendment is compliant with the district's official community plan, that type of situation, it's precluded, the district is prohibited from having a public hearing. So currently our development procedures bylaw says that wherever a zoning amendment is happening, we have to have a public hearing. So we're proposing to change that section to align with the local government, the new requirements. And then connected to that, right now, council's bylaw requires a public meeting for council to have a public meeting to consider development permits. And so for that, we're proposing to eliminate that just in limited circumstances where it's being considered with a zoning amendment that is prohibited from having a public hearing. Because otherwise, the public meeting could be considered a de facto hearing and then put that zoning bylaw at risk. There's not that many instances of that in West Vancouver, and so for that limited circumstance, we're proposing to eliminate the public meeting requirement. As well, we're proposing other more minor notification amendments for procedures to align that with the Local Government Act. And then for the official community plan or OCP amendments, most of the amendments are really to clean up and reorganize sections of that, of the area-specific development permit areas. One specific amendment we're proposing to make is for these sites that you can see on the map here outlined in purple. Those are existing multifamily development sites in the Panorama Ridge area. Currently, they're not included in an area-specific development permit area, and we're proposing to include them in the district's other multiple family sites development permit area. What this would do is for buildings or individual unit owners who are coming forward for renovations or changes to the exterior of their buildings, it would provide us some design oversight to ensure that renovations are happening that are of high quality of design and that are compatible within a building and within the surrounding area. And then finally, for the sign bylaw, we're proposing to add home-based business sign regulations. This is something that doesn't exist right now in the sign bylaw. And so this is something that we understand is of interest for residences that have home-based businesses. So there's certain restrictions that we're proposing. So they would only be permitted for ground-oriented dwelling units. So they wouldn't be permitted in apartment buildings, for instance. There would only be one sign permitted per dwelling unit. And then there's also specific size and locational criteria for these. So that concludes the presentation. We are recommending that council give the recommended readings to the proposed bylaws and set the date for public hearing for the zoning and official community plan bylaws. And that's anticipated for January 27th.
Thanks very much. And I am aware that members of council have had an opportunity to delve into more detail with you and Mr. Bailey. But is there any further discussion? Councillor Snyder, could I ask you to make the necessary motions?
Absolutely, thank you. I'd like to recommend, first off, I'd like to recommend that the proposed zoning bylaw number 4662, 2010, amendment bylaw number 5353, 2024 be read for our first time.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any discussion? Question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. Thank you, Councillor Snyder.
I'd like to recommend that the proposed development procedures bylaw number 4940, 2017, amendment bylaw number 5354, 2024 be read for a first, second, and third time.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. Thank you, Councillor Snyder.
Sorry. I'd like to recommend that the proposed official community plan bylaw number 4985, 2018, amendment bylaw number 5355, 2024 be read for a first time.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? Question, all in favor? Contrary, the motion is carried.
I'd like to recommend that the proposed sign bylaw number 4499, 2007, amendment bylaw number 5365, 2024 be read for a first, second, and third time.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? Question, all in favor? Contrary, the motion is carried. Thank you.
And I would like to recommend that the opportunities for consultation on the proposed official community plan amendment with persons, organizations, and authorities as outlined in the November 18th, 2024 report from the planning technicians be endorsed as sufficient consultation for the purposes of Section 475 of the Local Government Act.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Second that.
Discussion? Question, all in favor? Contrary, the motion is carried. And finally, thank you, Councillor
Finally,
Simon.
I'd like to recommend that the proposed zoning bylaw number 4662, 2010, amendment bylaw number 5353, 2024, and proposed official community plan bylaw number 4985, 2018, amendment bylaw number 5355, 2024, be presented at a public hearing scheduled for January 27th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. in the Municipal Hall Council Chambers and via electronic communication facilities, and that notice be given of the scheduled public hearing.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Discussion, all in favor? Contrary, motion is carried. Thank you. And now for the interim housing report. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Worship, and good evening. I'll just open the PowerPoint.
Yeah. Nice to see you, by the way, Theo. Thanks for coming in tonight.
Okay, hopefully the volume's better. So yes, good evening, Your Worship, members of council and members of the community. So this is a presentation to accompany the Interim Housing Needs Report, or HNR. This is in response to Bill 44, which amended the Local Government Act. And just to recall and distill, there were three main housing components, each with associated deadlines and deliverables. So the first was the requirement for small-scale multi-unit housing to be enabled on restricted zones, which was addressed over the course of the summer. The second is the primary subject of this evening's presentation, and it is the requirement for an interim housing needs report to be received by council by the end of this month. So that's obviously tonight's focus. But there is a third requirement that I'll just briefly allude to, that the OCP and zoning bylaws, all local governments must review them and update them if and as needed by the end of next year to reflect the housing needs estimates from the housing needs report. So I will also spend the second half of the presentation describing those implications, because that is the material piece or the material effect of the HNR legislation. So to begin with the housing needs report, the province did provide two options to meet the compliance deadline of the end of this month. The first, which we're proceeding with, is an interim report. So this is supplementary to Council's existing housing needs report, which is still relatively young, received in 2021. And there are three things which need to be added to it. They are, first part, numbers, 5 and 20-year housing needs estimates. Second part, a statement on the benefits of locating housing in proximity to transportation infrastructure. And the third is a summary of actions taken by the municipality to address housing since the most recent HNR 2021. There was a separate second option, which would be a full rescind and replace approach. It would require the same three components I've described on the left of the screen, as well as substantially more indicated in red font. So it would require updated population and housing info, so analysis of social, economic, demographic data, and so on. A much more expanded list of statements, so the red sub-bullets ranging from affordable to homelessness. And finally, a description and analysis of changes in housing needs since the 2021 Housing Needs Report. Key point here is that irrespective of the option chosen, there would still be the requirement legislatively to have a full housing needs report in 2028. So from a work planning perspective, we have proceeded with option one, and that recognizing that full report will occur in 2028 with the benefit of updated census information in 2026. So recognizing the time and resource constraints from this and other pieces of legislation, we are proceeding with the first option. So I'll describe those three components. The first is the numbers, so that's section 1 of the HNR. You can see them on the right of the screen there, so it's around 3,500 new units as an estimate of housing needs for 5 years, and going up to 10,700 in 20 years. There is an Appendix B outlining the various calculations and the data. I think the key point for this summary presentation is that they are required. So both data, the inputs, and the methodology, the calculation, they are prescribed by the province. So the math is the math, and you can see the footnote that West Vancouver staff, we ran the numbers. Our peers at Metro Vancouver did, as they did also for all member municipalities in the Lower Mainland, and the province themselves partnered with UBC to prepare a calculator. And the math is the math, the data is the data, the methodology is prescribed, and so those are the figures. The second section regarding the statement about the benefits of co-locating housing and transportation. This is very much aligned with Council's existing OCP. You'll see a summary map on the slide there. Really, it's structured around a network of centres concept being implemented through local area plans. And the intent here is to provide living opportunities in proximity to where people can access their daily needs, their shops, their services, their employment, their community amenities. If we accompany that with really great public realm improvements, it makes walking more viable, more attractive, and it also complements existing transit in West Vancouver. So the Marine Drive local area plan, approved in 2017, is adjacent to the Rapid Bus. Horseshoe Bay LAP, approved 2021, adjacent to the Express Downtown Bus, as well as the ferry terminal. The ongoing Ambleside LAP, obviously adjacent to the frequent transit corridor of Marine Drive. So it really builds on existing transit, and also planning in this way allows transportation planning to concentrate future transit demand. So Cypress Village recently approved to be a very good example of that. When council chose to concentrate development, it not only protected much more green space and secured it as parkland, it also made transit investment viable as the village builds out. Then the third section of the HNR requires a summary of actions taken since the previous one. I've already spoken to some of the major housing initiatives, the LAPs and Cypress. I'll just also add that very significant neighbourhood character working group project enabled bylaws which permit both basement suites and coach houses on the same site. And then at the bottom of the screen, in terms of numbers, you can see a summary of the actions that this and previous council has taken. So over 1,000 new units have been created, so occupancy permit has been granted, they exist. There's over 550 units where building permits have been issued. There's over 300 where development permits have been issued and they're pending building permit. And there's over 350 that are in stream with either building permit or development permit applications currently under review. So moving on to what this means for our two main planning bylaws, zoning and OCP. As mentioned at the top of the presentation, there is a new legislative function to the housing needs reports. So they're now required every 5 years with a 5 and 20-year housing needs estimate. And then following each housing needs report, there is a requirement to review OCP and zoning to ensure that there is sufficient capacity in place to meet the 20-year housing estimate. So looking at each planning bylaw in turn, regarding zoning, staff have analysed the zoning bylaw and estimate its potential maximum build-out at around 45,000 units. So if we subtract from that the existing built housing units, which is 19,500, there's a remaining capacity for 21,500 units. This obviously exceeds the housing needs report figure of 10,742. So the conclusion is the zoning bylaw is adequate, so council is compliant with that section of the Local Government Act. Therefore, there is no need to update the zoning bylaw. A brief italicised footnote there indicating that there are 21,500 units of zone capacity. Experience tells us that that doesn't mean those units will all be built. That will obviously depend on things like the landowner being interested, market forces, and so on. Moving on to the OCP, again, staff have conducted an analysis and estimate that there is a capacity in the OCP of around 9,850 units, and you can see how that's distributed across different planning areas, if you like, existing neighbourhoods. So there the policies really focus on things like council considering rezonings for missing middle or subdivision, duplexes and so on, the local area plans, that network of centres concept I spoke of, and future neighbourhoods, really protecting the green space to concentrate future development in the upper lands. So if you add all that up, that is a deficit compared to the housing needs reports estimate. It's around 900 units, so there is just a signpost 2025. There will be an OCP update that is legislatively required. And just the quick footnote on that is, I'd recall that our 2018 OCP is very recent. It's robust. It's a very solid starting place. The first thing we'll do is engage the public so we get a chance to hear from them in terms of their housing priorities before we begin drafting any potential bylaw council could consider. But at this stage, I would very much characterize it as a refresh versus a complete reboot of the official community plan. So in conclusion, I recognize this has been a lot of legislation and accounting in this PowerPoint, but to summarize, the housing needs report is required to be received and published by council by the end of this year, so that's tonight's recommendation. But casting ahead, council's zoning bylaw is compliant, so no update will be required to meet Bill 44. And just recall that the zoning bylaw is very much a living document, so council continues to update it and consider updating it through development applications, and that's the best way to meet our housing needs based on the merits of any application in terms of what they contribute and how they fit in. And then the OCP, it is not compliant with the Local Government Act, and since 2018 OCP, the region has updated the regional plan, so there are updates required. But again, council continues to implement the existing OCP, uses this OCP, it directs staff's work through that OCP, but we will be engaging the community next year, and we will be coming back to you over the course of 2025 with recommendations to meet compliance. But for tonight, the recommendation in front of council is legislatively required, and it is that the interim housing needs report be received for information and published on the district's website.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Councillor Gambioli, please.
Well, I'll make the motion, and then I just have a couple questions. So I'll recommend that the interim housing needs report attached as Appendix A to the November 22nd, 2024 report from the Senior Community Planner be received for information and published on the district's website as per legislative requirements.
Thank you. Councillor Watt.
Second that.
Any discussion?
So my two questions are, I know we heard you say that related to the 900 unit gap in the OCP, you'll be doing some consulting this coming year, but just from your knowledge of the community and the housing needs, what direction do you think we would need to go to fill those 900 units? If you didn't have any public feedback, what would be your advice at the moment?
Through your worship, so we will get public feedback, but I think one of the clear deficits, if you like, this was true during previous conversations with the public preparing the current OCP, were things like missing middle. I think it's 2 to 3% of our housing stock, so are we doing enough? Would people like to see more multiplexes, fourplexes, row houses, those kinds of things? So I will wait to see what I obviously hear from the public, but first thing will be confirming their priorities and then looking at the kinds of bylaw amendments that would be more enabling to meet the objectives that we hear from the community.
And when you say missing middle, because we get confused, because some people think that means missing middle in terms of the age of people, but we're talking about a type of housing form that is between single family and a tower form. So all those things you just mentioned quickly, townhouses.
That's correct, yes. I'm talking about the missing housing form. So an example would be a triplex, a fourplex, a multiplex, a row house, etc.
Okay. And my other question is just related, because I have had a lot of questions lately about where are we at in terms of the process with the Ambleside LAP and how this fits into this housing needs.
Through your worship to Councillor Gambioli. So the LAP is provided for in the 2018 OCP, so it's very much about respecting the process. I wouldn't want that to be influenced by new provincial legislation. We recently finished engagement on the commercial area stream, and as soon as we can, we will be coming back to council, so very early in the new year, with a summary of everything we heard. Don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think we reached 1,000 people. Sort of initial analysis through things like the survey would suggest that more than 1 in 2 people were in support of what was proposed, rising to 80% people in support with suggestions for modifications. So that gives us a lot to work with. I think we're in very good standing, and we will be coming back to council with both the comprehensive engagement summary and our thinking in terms of what it means to seek your direction on moving forward with a draft plan.
Thank you. Councillor Watt.
Yeah, mine is more an observation and somewhat of a question, but I was really struck by the 45 to 54-year-old bracket. 2006, there were 3,105 owners versus 840 renters. 2021, 2,365 owners to 1,140 renters. It's quite a remarkable shift in the dynamic. And when I initially looked at that, my presumption was the economy, people taking longer to be able to buy. But then on the flip side, you look at the sheer cost of renting a home in West Vancouver. So I'm curious as to whether you have any insight into that rather profound shift.
Through your worship to Councillor Watt, nothing in addition to your own observations. I think we're all aware of the cost of housing, whether that be ownership or rental, and then that could be influenced by changing demographics, people's desire to downsize and so on.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you. I just thought it was noteworthy.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Contrary, the motion's carried. Thank you. Item number 5, proposed bylaw enforcement. Councillor Cassidy, please.
It is recommended the proposed bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 4368, 2004, amendment bylaw number 5369, 2024 be read a first, second, and third time.
Thank you. Councillor Watt.
I'm going to second that, and I have a lot of notes too. Comments.
Do you have comments? Okay.
I do.
Floor is yours.
Okay, so I'm just going to read this. I typed out a few things the other day. So historically, these fines have not been reviewed on an annual basis to account for inflation, and they're not part of the annual fees and charges renewed or review. But why have they not been increased since 2006? Like 18 years, it's a long time. And when you go back to that, so a $35 ticket in 2006 would be $51 now. $100 ticket would be $145.71. And, you know, these increases are significant, but the proposed increases don't quite fall in line with what inflation would do. And I did take those numbers and I put them into an inflation calculator. So I was just curious. And the other note, a couple other notes while I've got the mic. It's interesting to note that we only issued 457 parking tickets over the course of 2023, and you know, you'd think we would have that number of violators in less than a week, which goes to the issue with the number of bylaw officers. And I know I've said this before, but I really implore us to dig deeper and look at a different model, because I understand we don't have enough bylaw officers that would surely pay for themselves given these numbers. If we were to put it out to community members that may be looking for part-time work, and then we don't have the problem of losing people because they can't afford to cross a bridge or they don't want to. So I just really think that we need to look at this a little deeper, first in the values of these increases, which I think are too low, and in our bylaw department and how we can find a way to increase the number of bylaw officers. It'll pay for itself.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Any further discussion? I'll call a question. All in favor? Contrary, the motion is carried. On to bylaws, please. Proposed solid waste. Councillor Gambioli, please.
I will recommend that proposed solid waste utility bylaw number 4740, 2012, amendment bylaw number 5348, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Discussion, question, all in favor, contrary, carried. Item number 7, the proposed waterworks regulation. Councillor Watt, please.
I'd like to recommend that proposed waterworks regulation bylaw number 5260, 2023, amendment bylaw number 5349, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Gambioli. Discussion, question, all in favor, contrary, carried. Thank you. Councillor Gambioli is the acting mayor. Could you please take over item number, sorry,
we're at number 8.
Item number 8, please, Councillor Watt.
Yep, and I'd also like to recommend that proposed sewerage and drainage regulation bylaw number 5263, 2023, amendment bylaw number 5350, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Gambioli. Discussion, question, all in favor, contrary carried. Item number 9, Councillor Gambioli is acting mayor. Could you please take over for this item?
Oh. Good evening. Ooh, different viewpoint entirely over here. Okay, we're looking at item number 9, proposed zoning bylaw, which relates to the marine zone adjacent to Pasco Road. So these proposed bylaws received first reading on October 21st and were the subject of a public hearing and closed November 18th, 2024, and received second and third reading at our meeting of November 25th, 2024. And it was approved by the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure on November 12th and may now be considered for adoption. So I believe we have Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that proposed zoning bylaw number 4662, 2010, amendment bylaw number 5361, 2024 be adopted.
Second.
And all those in favor? And contrary? And secondly, official community plan.
I'd like to propose that official community plan bylaw number 4985, 2018, amendment bylaw number 5362, 2024 be adopted.
Second.
All those in favor? And contrary?
And I'd like to propose that, that's it.
That's all
That's
we need to do
it.
for
But I can
now.
keep proposing if you like.
Item number 10. I will get the mayor back. That was quick.
Thank you, Councillor Gambioli. Item number 10. Could I ask Councillor Thompson, please?
Yes, thank you. I'll propose that fees and charges bylaw number 5334, 2024, amendment bylaw number 5366, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Snyder. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Contrary, the motion's carried. Item number 11. The proposed housing agreement, the final reading. Councillor Lambert, please.
Thank you, Mayor Sager. The following proposed bylaw received first, second, and third reading at the November 25th, 2024 council meeting. And the recommendation is that the proposed housing agreement authorization bylaw number 5352, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Discussion, question. All in favor? Contrary, carried. We'll go to the consent items, and I'll pull item number 13.8 and 13.9. From the consent agenda and ask if I could have a motion on the balance, please. Councillor Snyder.
I'd like to, I'd like to recommend that the consent agenda items, with the exception of 13.8 and 13.9, be approved as written.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Second that.
Thank you. Discussion, question. All in favor? Contrary, carried. Thank you. We'll go to 13.8. Councillor Gambioli, you wish to make an amendment to this bylaw? Or policy, I'm sorry?
I think it was just a comment.
Well, yeah, I think that it's not an amendment, it's just a suggestion for staff that I'm hoping we could implement. This is, this item is related to what we currently call the vehicle use and allowance policy to be rescinded, and that a new policy be written in the new year. And I just feel that the title and the topic of vehicle use and allowance policy is pretty outdated, and I'm hoping that staff can consider something a little bit more modern and progressive, which could be called, for example, something like a transportation use and allowance policy, which could allow for not only vehicles to be vehicle use to be allowed for, but any kind of transportation, excluding not just vehicles, car sharing, Uber, active transportation, public transit, all be allowed under this policy. Going forward, there will be a lot more different kinds of transportation other than single occupancy internal combustion engines, and that's a really outdated policy. So I'm hoping staff could just consider that for the rewrite.
I think those are good suggestions, but you're not opposed to this particular policy now. So could I have a motion to move 13.8, please? Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Snyder. All those in favor? Contrary, carried. And item 13.9, could I have a motion to receive the delegation, to approve a delegation for the, sorry, Councillor Snyder, will you do that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to recommend that the delegation request from the West Vancouver Youth Council regarding West Vancouver, from the West Vancouver Youth Council be approved.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Thompson. Question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. That disposes of the consent agenda items. There's no other business. Any reports from Mayor and councillors? Hearing none. Are there any public questions this evening?
Mayor Sager, yes, I believe we have a few members of the public signed up for this item. Thank you, Theo. The first name on this list is Scott McDonald or Nicola McDonald, so I guess they're drawing lots.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald, thank you for joining us this evening. How can we help?
Thank you for allowing me to speak to you. I'm here as well as a few other members of our community. Just a brief little statement about the Marr Creek flood.
Thank you.
From October the 19th. And I just want to say thank you for Mayor Sager and Councillor Watt for coming out. I think it was the day after to visit us on site.
I was there that day as well.
That was very appreciated, so thank you. First, I'd just like to thank the district engineering staff who, on the day of the flood, worked tirelessly through the night to clear the blocked culvert at Marr Creek at 25th and Mathers, and eventually stop the relentless flow of water that caused so much destruction. It was about 14 exhausting hours of fighting the battle to save our homes, so it was a relief to see the water finally contained, so thank you for that. However, I think it's a bit accurate to categorize that effort as a reactive response to a disaster situation, and I believe this is the key concern for myself and other property owners, that we need to sort of transition to more of a proactive approach to mitigating this type of event rather than reacting when it's quite often too late to really rectify the situation in the moment. A proactive approach to mitigating the overflow of Marr Creek specifically and the North Shore Creeks in general, rather than being reactive to issues as they arise, which often is too late to prevent significant property damage. So moving forward, our primary concerns are preserving, obviously, the value of our homes and property, the ability to obtain insurance coverage to protect us, which we unfortunately found out we did not have. We thought we did, but we did not. This is very specific over land body of water rider you have to have, which many of us did not have. So our primary concerns are those getting insurance coverage to protect us from future flooding and catastrophic loss. So in this regard, I think we believe it's extremely important that the district develops a comprehensive plan and a commitment to effectively maintain the creek and, more importantly, ensure that the culverts are clear. So we would just request that the district engineering department develops a strategy to keep impacted property owners informed regarding decisions being made to create flood mitigation solutions. These decisions will directly impact our safety, financial well-being, and the ability to protect our most valuable asset, which is our home and property. So we're most assuredly stakeholders in this process, and we would just like to be considered as such, and maybe just be not part of the process to make decisions, but at least be informed. So with that in mind, my question for council would be, is there a strategy being developed, or is there one going to be in place to keep the public informed and updated as decisions are made regarding future flood control for Marr Creek?
That's an excellent question, sir, and I know that every member of council is of course extremely sympathetic to the pain that all of you suffered through. And I know that our staff is working very hard. Mr. Manager, do you want to make any comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No comments at this time because there are certain matters before us that we have to take care of. But I do know that staff do have plans in place. They've had plans in place. That was a 1 in 200 year event that occurred. And so we will continue to look and assess and report up and make sure that council and the public are aware of what staff are doing.
Thank you. I think your request, though, to be informed as to what is going on is a very fair request.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just I think because there was so much work done, and then just from our perspective as homeowners, and then sort of crews leave, and then they're just sort of in the dark. Well, is that it, or is there more being planned? So it's just to even if it's like nothing specific yet, a decision will be made in the next month or two. Even just knowing that information gives a sense of context to what's going on.
Actually, I think what would be really helpful if you accumulated the email addresses of the people you feel that, so that we don't miss anyone, and if you send that to me,
sure,
we'll find some way to accommodate that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Sager. The next name on the list is Philip Langridge or Joyce Langridge.
Mr. Langridge. Now, gosh, this brings back memories, doesn't it? Years ago when you used to come before council and wearing a different hat. Nice to see you, sir.
You too, Your Worship. For the 7 councillors, I've just got a couple of pictures.
If you just pass them there, we'll pass them around. Philip, thank you.
Thank you.
Here we go. We'll pass them. Thank you. Well, Mr. Langridge used to work, you see, for British Pacific Properties. And they used to appear before us from time to time because they had an interest in land in our community.
Fairly frequently, if I remember.
You were fairly frequent, yes, you were.
Anyway, thank you so much for allowing us to talk tonight. I know 3 of us have got 3 minutes to just say hi and just let you know of our concerns. And really appreciate you giving us this opportunity. So, dear Honourable Mark Sager and members of Council, as most of you are aware, on Saturday, October 19th, starting at around 9:30 a.m, Mark Creek across Mathers Avenue to the north of our house, as Mark does know, we live at 2502 Mathers Avenue on the corner, and 50 yards west of us, Mark Creek overflowed its banks due to rocks, timber and debris blocking the access to the culvert underneath Mathers Avenue. Once the debris gate, which I'm told is the official name for the grate, once the debris gate, which was bolted to the concrete of Mathers Avenue, completely blocked Mark Creek, the water in the creek had nowhere to go except to flow over Mathers Avenue and right through our front garden, both sides of our house, and through our lower level, with the media room, mechanical room, laundry rooms, the guest bedroom, the mud room, and the garage. In most people's opinion, since that date that I've chatted to and stood by the side of the road and got to know, a common comment is, well, should the gate have been bolted to the concrete of Mathers Avenue? And right now, if you look at one of the pictures at the back of the 2 pictures of the folder, there is a picture of the gate back about 12, 15 feet, secured in place by some nice pink rope and some big concrete blocks. And I think the advantage of where it is now, I think it's very sensible that the gate, the debris gate, could block to the same extent of logs and rocks, but the water would then flow over the top of the gate and into the culvert. On the 19th of October, once it blocked the gate, the water had nowhere to go but over Mathers Avenue. I diverted a little bit, so I'll get back to that. Second paragraph, at our house, the water could not escape once the drains in the rear yard blocked with dense mud until the water level reached the sidewalk on 25th Street. The result being 5 feet of water in our backyard, and the lower level of the house and garage flooded to a height of 5 feet also, destroying everything below that, which included 2 cars in the garage, one of which was totally submerged, And Chubb Insurance has denied coverage as I didn't have overland water damage, which
It's time, sir.
No, okay. Thank you, Mr. Langridge. We'll let you finish.
Thank you very much, Your Honour. I didn't have the overland water damage coverage. 6 years ago, when I built the house, the 2 words in the riders at that time were water infiltration. And I called my broker and asked him what was water infiltration, and he wasn't quite sure, and said, well, Philip, your house is brand new, you've got a 10-year warranty, it was built by Bradner, one of the best builders in West Vancouver. You've got flood inside the house, so, I'm not sure you want to spend that $1,200. Well, as you all know, that $1,200 has cost me probably now $1.5 to $2 million. My son Max, who's 32, was the first on the scene at 10:08 a.m. And he swam through 5 feet of water in the lower level through the media room into the garage to turn off the main electric breaker. He had actually called BC Hydro to ask them to turn off the supply, and they told him to get in line. He could have been electrocuted. My wife's, Joyce's electric Mini in the garage, which was destroyed that day, charges with a 240 volt system. Page 2. As I mentioned, estimates of damage is probably $1.5 million to $2 million. And Bradner Homes tell us that we may be back in the house by August or September. We thank you for allowing us to speak at tonight's council meeting, and we're looking forward to hearing what steps the District of West Vancouver is considering to make sure the disaster on 25th and Mathers never happens again. We were very grateful to the Mayor, Mark Sager, for visiting to see the disaster himself firsthand and walk through the house, as well as Councillor Linda Watt, who accompanied him on that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Langridge. I think we can wind up there, and we've
Yeah.
got the link, so I'm
Yeah.
sure members of council will take the opportunity to look further, and our thoughts are certainly with both of you.
Well, thank you so much. And
Thank
I
you.
did email this to all the councillors, so at your leisure, you might pull up a link.
Oh, that'll make it easier. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Do we have
Thank you,
anyone
Mayor
else this evening?
The next names on the list are Mark Latour and or Brittany Latour.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Latour.
Good evening, council members, and the guy in the front there with the great name. My name is Mark Latour, and
But I think yours is with a C. I'm
I know,
jealous.
even better, right? I am a property owner in West Vancouver that was severely impacted with the recent flooding. We bought our home just 7 months ago. I grew up on the North Shore, and I've always loved West Vancouver. 2 years ago, we had a beautiful baby girl. We wanted the best and safest community for her to live in. I couldn't think of a better place to live in than West Vancouver. We drained our bank accounts to buy property here. It was a character home on Mark Creek. It was beautiful. We were very happy. On October 19th, my wife was at home with our toddler when water started pouring into our house. Once she was able to get our daughter out to safety, we started speaking to our neighbors. The neighbors to the northeast of us up the hill said that all night, the night before, they were kept up by rocks going through the culvert beside their home. Another neighbor said that around 8:30 a.m., she phoned the district to tell them the water was overflowing onto the street of Mathers Ave. By 9 a.m., another neighbor's sump pump alarm started going off and the water pouring down 25th Street. And at 10 a.m., the water breached our retaining walls and went into our home. Pardon me. By 10:30, we had 5 feet of water in the downstairs of our house. The force of the water was so strong it ripped off exterior doors, interior doors, flipped the 100-pound washing machine right upside down. If this had happened at night, our daughter, who slept downstairs, could have been trapped in her crib or even drowned. Our home took on creek water for about 3 weeks. For 6 of those days, the water was 5 feet high. Over 400,000 pounds of rocks were excavated from our creek beside the house. There's significant damage to our home, and the insurance company is only covering $100,000. We believe this happened because the culvert under Mathers Avenue is poorly designed and poorly maintained. This culvert was built in the 1950s, possibly earlier, It is S-shaped, so it naturally slows down the flow of water. At some point, the district added a narrow grate onto it so that rocks cannot go through. Instead, they build up in front of the culvert, creating a dam. This is the only point in the creek channel that we know of where there is a grate. There is nothing to stop rocks from falling directly from Cypress all the way down until they reach this one culvert grate. When we talked to the district workers on scene, they said one of their jobs was to inspect culverts and clean out debris, but they had no idea that the culvert under Mathers Ave was even there. There was a tree and thick bushes growing on top of this culvert. You couldn't even see it from the road. It was obvious that it was not cleared or properly maintained. We are hearing from the neighbors that they have been complaining to the district about this culvert for decades, but nothing was done. Since the flood, the district has been clearing it periodically with an excavator. We just don't know where the excavator was before the flood and what is being done to prevent this from happening again. So far, we have been told nothing. West Vancouver was supposed to be a safe place to raise our child, and now we're homeless with no chance of returning to our home for many years. West Vancouver Council does have the power to stop this from happening in the future, and I ask to please put all your resources you can to make Thunder Rave a safe place to live again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm grateful to all of you for coming this evening, and I'm just so sorry that it has to be on these kinds of circumstances. But our thoughts are with all of you, and hopefully something good somehow will happen. Are there any other speakers?
We have one more name on the list, Mayor Sager, Nicole Edwards.
Ms. Edwards? No?
I'm excusing myself, please.
Okay, she's excusing herself. And hearing no further, again, thank you for joining us this evening. And just for anybody who might be tuning in, or if any of you have a free afternoon tomorrow, we would invite you to join us as we open the Place for Sport at West Van Secondary School. We are very thrilled with this beautiful new facility for our athletes in the community. At 1 o'clock, there will be an official ceremony. And with that, could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Councillor Watt? Thank you. Councillor Snyder, second. All those in favor? Contrary carried. Good evening. Thank you.